Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. For the sake of time, we are going to start. I hope you can hear me. Victor, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, we have muted everyone. Somebody is asking about the sound. If you need a question, you can raise. If you need to ask a question, you can raise your hands. So we are going to start. This is the East Central and South Africa Microsoft Excel webinar, and it's brought to you by Crisp Excel Training and Consulting. We are corporate and individual trainers here in Kenya on advanced Excel, HR analytics, project management, Office 365 platform. Here is among the partners that we have. I'm also excited today to have Victor Momo back. We all know him, we all love him. He is an Excel enthusiast, Excel expert. Areas of expertise, data modeling, corporate training, data analysis, among others. So here is some of his social media links on YouTube. I'll send this, and also on LinkedIn. And if you have not seen his series on Excel strategies, I think this is a must watch for any one person who wants to become an expert in Excel. So I'll copy this and I'll send it on the chat so that you can follow him on YouTube. Today's topic is pivot tables with formulas. I don't know what it is, but I'm very sure we are all going to come out of this session smarter than we got in. So I'll stop sharing and welcome Victor.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, my screen, sorry, power just went out for a bit, but just give me a second. I will be able to share this. So maybe while I try to resolve that, I'll just say good afternoon to everyone. I mean, it's afternoon here in Lagos, Nigeria. It's 2 p.m. So for those of you joining from maybe the States, good morning to you. And then for those joining from India, and from Asia, Southeast Asia, I'll say good evening. So first of all, let me just thank Crispo for this invite. We're having this conversation just before people joined in, and he was like, "Oh, thank you for honoring the invitation." I said, "No, thank you for inviting me." Because it's always a privilege. I never consider this a right because there are so many people that you can invite who are Excel experts. So for the fact that you get to invite me, I take it as a privilege. So thank you for that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So just let me know if you can see my screen. Crispo, is he up?
Yes, it's loading, but not yet up.
Oh, okay. That's a little slow.
Oh yeah. Now it's showing.
Okay, now it's showing. Okay. And maybe just for those who may want to see my face, I may try, but if my camera tends to slow down the quality of the screen share, then just let me know and I will flip it off. I know people want to see my screen rather than see my face, but well, I mean, you might as well just take both. Okay, so all right. So,
actually, you are static. The face is static, so you are not moving.
Can you imagine, right? Of all things to happen. So
I think it's okay. You turn off the camera.
I'll turn it off. That's okay. Yeah. I think you've made the decision easy for me. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead. So yes, we kind of tagged the topic, and I think I've become notorious for that in the last maybe 2 sessions, or even the last session I had with Crispo. Where I said, oh, okay. Said it's not static. Actually, it might just be Crispo's end. Okay. So Crispo.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I need to send you a mast from Nigeria, so to help with your network. Yeah. So I was saying that, sometimes I tend to just keep the topic a little cryptic or just keep people guessing, what we want to talk about. Even Carlos Barbosa on LinkedIn was like, oh, it looks like we're going to talk about get pivot data, Unfortunately for him, that's not what we're talking about. So what we really want to talk about today are, two functions, group by and pivot by. And the reason I tagged the topic that way, because what they are used for really is pretty much creating the same visuals that pivot tables will create, but the difference here is that you're using formulas, right? As opposed to, a pivot table where you really just do a drag and drop and the formulas are done behind the scene. But there's always been that debate of, oh, okay, is it possible to have a pivot table refresh automatically? Of course, there are ways you can do that, set it up to refresh every X minutes, or write a VBA code to make it refresh. But the beautiful things about formulas is that formulas don't need any triggers, right? I mean, once you type in a formula and press enter, so long as your calculation option is on automatic, the formula recalculates and you have updated values every time. So now that we have functions that can do what pivot tables can do, and they are functions and they can be used in a formula context, it seems that we're getting closer to where we've always wanted to be, which is to have, pivot tables refresh. So the function, I'm sure, is not available on the current channel for now, which means that everybody who is just on the regular Office 365 will not have it. But there are people who already have it who will benefit from the session. Those who don't will still have it, and you would always have this video as a reference. Will the worksheet be shared together with the recording? Yes, I'll share the worksheet, or the workbook. Sorry, don't mind my being pedantic. I'll share the workbook, okay? All right, so those who don't have the functions yet would also get it and would be able to benefit from it at a certain point. Okay, so we all know what pivot tables are, and pivot tables are a feature in Excel that I consider to be very powerful. Maybe Power Query may be the only thing more powerful than that. I know I can get into trouble for that, but yeah, I mean, pivot tables are very powerful. The fact that you can, create interesting displays, reports, visuals without writing a single formula, I think that's amazing to me. Yes, we know you can add calculated fields, but by just doing a drag and drop, you can always get, get things to work the way you want it to work. I never always have a good definition for pivot tables, but we already know what they are, right? So I won't go into saying these are pivot tables, but basically just used to summarize data, right? So summarize and aggregate data. And when we say aggregate, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a sum. It could be a count, it could be a count A, it could be a mean, max, so don't get it confused. And once you say aggregate, it means, kind of sum it up. Or if you say summarize, it means sum it up. But what it just helps you do is that if you have a large data set, it can help you, to pretty much just drill down and give you like a summary report that represents that, entire data set. Okay, so let's look at the functions. We're going to talk about two of them, group by and pivot by, and I'll give you some examples and use cases, just some interesting ways. So if you ever use the pivot table, then you'd totally be able to follow the discussion here. What I always do when a function comes out is that I go shamelessly to support.microsoft.com and I pick up the documentation on the function. I feel that the best way to learn a function is by asking the manufacturer, how does this function work? How is it intended to work? But we know that in our fiddling around, we get to stumble on some things, but it's also good, first of all, to understand how it was intended to work. So here's the documentation from support.office.microsoft.com, and these are the two functions, group by and pivot by. And you probably can make the argument that these two functions can be one function. What's the difference between a group by and a pivot by? If you've ever used a pivot table, you have a row fields, you have a column fields, and sometimes you use only the row fields, you don't use the column fields, and then some other times you use, both of them. Okay, so when you are dealing with just a row fields, you're in the realm of group by. When you are dealing with, both row fields and a column fields, which is like you're creating like a cross tabulation, then you're in the realm of pivot by. But you would realize when you look at both functions that pivot by has every of the arguments that group by has, right? And I think that should be clear to most people here. You can see. So it means that if you just skip those arguments in the pivot by, you may be able to get, a group by. Okay, so just think of the function as looking at a pivot table, right? So with the group by, the first thing you need to do is you need to tell it, what goes into the rows. Okay, so what's column? or what field goes into the rows. The next argument is to tell it what goes into the values. And typically what goes into values is most times always, a numeric field, right? Because you want to maybe do a count, a sum on it. If you put a text field in a pivot table, the values, it only gives you a count. But you will see that with group by and pivot by, you can do something more interesting. Then the function is just a list of about 14, 15 functions which you can choose from. Because when you want to do an aggregation, it's not every time you do a sum. Sometimes you want to do an average. Sometimes you want to do a count. Okay, so for the function, that's what that means. The field headers is, yes, your pivot table typically has headers. Do you want to show the headers or do you not want to show the headers? That's what this controls. Then total depth pretty much controls, do you want to see, like in your pivot table, you have grand totals, you have subtotals. So do you want to show subtotals? Do you want to show grand totals? Do you want to show both? Okay, that's what that is about. And sort order, there are times you put a pivot table. Naturally, what happens is that it sorts it alphabetically based on the first column, but you may want to sort it descending based on maybe the values in the numeric field. So sort order here allows you to do that. But most times when we explain in this way, it seems like we're just speaking English. People are like, okay, well, I think when I see it work, I will understand it better. And that's what, I'll suggest that we do. So I'm going to go to the next sheet, pull up an example and show you exactly what I'm talking about. And as I go through, I'll be touching, each of the arguments, one after the other. So let's see how far I can go. All right. So we have a simple table here, which is the first case, right? We have salespersons and we have sales. This is a classic example, right? Where you have duplicate names. Like you can see that there's James here and there's James here. Okay, you can also see that there's John here and there's also John here, right? You can see Jack appearing like 3 times. And somebody wants a summary table that lists the names uniquely and then maybe gives us the sum. Okay, zoom in a bit. All right, great. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so what most people may want is, they want to see each of the names listed just once and they want to see the sum of the sales. So how would you do that normally? With the Office 365 functions and dynamic arrays, I could do something like this. I could use a unique function first. If I do unique and this gives me all the names listed just once. Okay, so it's just like remove duplicates. Then here, I can now decide, okay, how do I get the sum for each person's name? Many ways to do it. One way you could do is you could do a filter, for example. You could say, okay, filter, the amounts, where the name is equal to, this, for example. Okay, so this gives you everything for, this is all the Jameses that you have here. You can see there's 25 here, there's 25 here, there's another 25 here. So those are the 3, and you can put a sum around it. Okay, so and then you get for James, you take that formula down. Somebody else can decide to do like a sum ifs or sum ifs and say, do a sum ifs. I want to sum the amounts. My criteria is look at the name and see if the name is equal to any of the names I have here. Okay, so I can do this and I get it all at once. Okay, so but now you realize that for me to get this result, I have to use a unique here. And I had to also use, like a sum ifs here, a sum filter, whatever you want to use here, a sum product, you can use that. But now I have 2 functions. Okay, so there's one array here, there's one array here. I can use an H stack to bring both of them together and make it look like one. But now this is how we used to do it before we had the group by function. Because if you think about it, if you drag this into a pivot table, you will get the answers automatically. Like everybody knows that. So let's do a pivot table quickly and see. I typically use Alt DP as my shortcut. That's the old shortcut. Okay, so I got the range correctly. Existing worksheets. So let's just put it. Let's put it here. Okay, and then do finish. Right, so basically salesperson, sales. And we have the same answer, as you can see. Right, everybody can see that. So that's the same thing. But now if something changes here, if this James changes from 25 to 3000, watch what happens. Okay, you can see that James here has changed to 8000 because it's added 500 here, but the pivot table, still showing James as 75. I may need to right click and do a refresh, and now it picks it up. Okay, so that used to be the challenge that people have, with the pivot table and say, oh, is there a way to make this work with the formula? So now your prayers and requests have been answered. So That's why you have group by. So let me show you how to do this with a group by. So do group by. The first thing it asks you is, what is your row fields? Meaning, what do you want me to list in the rows? Any field you put in here, the unique values will be listed, in the rows, meaning from row to row. Okay, so let's say we do this. We take this, and that's our row fields. The next thing it says, what do you want to be in the values column, which is like what you will put in the values area in a pivot table. Let me say those are my sales. So I do this, right? And then it then asks you, how do you want to summarize it? What function do you want to use? So do you see that they have already created for you now, which are called like lambda eta functions, eta lambda functions, okay, reduced lambda functions, which once you use these names here, group by understands what you're trying to do. So if I use sum in this context here, what it's going to do is that for every unique name, it's going to give me a sum. If I want average, I choose average. There are about 14 of them. But if you are trying to use anything outside of this, then you might need to create more or less like your own function using a lambda. So let's do in this simple case, let's do a sum. Let's just do a sum and close the bracket. Okay. All right. And you can see that automatically, we have, the answer the way we want it, right? So without doing anything. So that's the simple function. So group by, what you want to put in the row, what you want to put in the values, and what function you want to include here. So if you don't like a sum, you could decide to do, like an average, right? And then, so this is everybody, and these are the averages. Of course, when dynamic arrays spill, they don't spill formatting, right? So, that's why, of course, you are seeing some values that look very ugly in here. But, okay, that's a different conversation. So that's the easiest way, to use it. So now you can use it with a formula, and when anything changes in the source data automatically, because it's a formula, right? It changes. And you can see this is just one expression. Unlike here, there is a unique, and here there's a sum ifs. Here is just a group by, and you get that. So that's how to use it. It's very simple. There are some other arguments, but let's take things step by step. And people are like, oh wow, Victor, this is so easy. Well, naturally in my sessions things start easy, but after a while people start to run away. No, I don't mean that. People start to say, okay, now it's getting more intense. But yeah, so that's how it works. What I want to do here is, there's no difference between this data and the first one. The only thing I'm doing differently here is that here I'm using a table. Okay, so I'm using a table here, and just to show something. Okay, so you can do group by, and you can say row fields, and I can select everything including the headers. Okay, so I select everything, that's salesperson, and then for sales I select everything also. Okay, for salesperson, and then for the function I decide to do a sum. Okay, so it's going to give me exactly the same result. Right. Okay, now this was me before the fact. Okay, so now this is what we have. Now let's look at one or two of the other functions, arguments rather, that you have. So you can see that after this you have field headers. So field headers here now says, do you want the headers to show? Because as you can see in my result, there are no headers. So if I say yes and show 3, which is the example the value most people would use, then you can see we now have headers, salesperson and sales. Okay, and so this looks kind of better. Okay, now let's go forward. The next thing it says total depth. This now says, are you going to show totals, grand and subtotals? Subtotals doesn't make sense in this case. The only time you have subtotals is when you have at least 2 fields in your row field. You will see that even with a pivot table, because if you are just having one field here, which is salesperson, then there's no subtotal. You can't show just Jack and then say Jack's total, James's total. It only makes sense when you show Jack, maybe the cities where he belongs, and then you show a subtotal. So if you want to show no totals, which is the 0 here, you can just do 0. But if you want to say, oh, okay, I leave totals the way it is, then that's the default. So I can do 0, to knock off the totals. Okay, so you can see that with the arguments, just like in a pivot table where you can say turn off subtotals, turn off grand totals, you can do the same thing, here. All right, so now I have, maybe to my mind, a cleaner, pivot table. Okay, and then the next thing I can do is the sort order. Let me just show this here before I move to the next example. The sort order, this one is interesting. The question is, how do you want to sort it? What you notice is that by default, just like a pivot table, this is sorted alphabetically by the salesperson, the first column. Okay, so what if you wanted to see it by sales, so that the person with the highest sales comes to the top and it goes in descending order? So that's where the sort order becomes useful. So what you do for that is simple. There are 2 ways. For the sort order, you just put the column you want it to sort by. with an index. So if I wanted to sort by the salesperson column, which it has done already, that means I wanted to sort by 1. That would be my response there. Okay. But if I wanted to sort by salesperson in descending order, reverse order, alphabetically, I would do -1. That's just the difference. So watch what will happen here. If you do -1, then Johnson will come to the top. So see, okay. So what is done now is sorted by salesperson in descending order, reverse order. So if you wanted it to sort by sales, which is the second column, okay, you should be doing a 2. If you do 2, it's going to go in ascending order. If you do -2, then it's going to go in descending order. Okay, so that's really how it is. So with these flexibilities, it makes it really cool for you to show, your data the way you want it to. And if you are thinking of a pivot chart, you can just add a chart on top of this, and the chart will also be dynamic. Every time this changes, that also changes. So you more or less already have the pivot table, pivot chart concept by just using the group by function or pivot by function and, a chart in that sense. Okay, so that's what I want to say about this at this point. So that's group by. If there are any questions on it, please do ask. It's going to get a little intense, but well, let's leave it at that for now. Crispo, any questions?
No questions so far.
Yes. Okay.
I was thinking, that if you are making something with a pivot table where you can show values as a rank, show values as a percentage of the total column.
Yes.
Of the total. Can you do that with group by?
Yes. So
you're going to present that later on.
Yes, I will touch on that. Yes.
Okay.
Something like percent off. So that's where the percent off function comes in. Yes. So we always talk about group by and pivot by, but they're actually 3 functions. But the third guy just fell out of favor and nobody talks about it, which is percent off. So you have, group by, as you can see, you have pivot by, right? And then you also have percent off. Sorry, let me go back. So so you have percent off. So that's the third guy, that allows you, and you use it inside of maybe the group by or the pivot by to show things as a percentage of maybe grand total. So yes, I would show, that. But I mean, while I'm here, why not? So let me do it here. So rather than do a sum here now, automatically what you can do is, if you look at the options you have here, you can see that percent off is also presented as an option for you. So you see sum and you see percent off. So what it means is that if you put percent off, it's going to do a percent off automatically. Okay, so that's your percent off. Now, if you think, okay, is that right? Let's do this here. Let's just kind of get a total for each of them here. So it's basically like doing all of this, right? Divided by this. I think that should give us what we want. Okay, let's see. Maybe we need to add more. Okay, so basically, the same thing, right? Although this one isn't sorted, alphabetically. Okay, but that's it. So that's what the percent off can do. So it can say, yes, what percentage of the sales belong to Jack, and then of course you can format it. Control-Shift-5 would give you, the percentage format if you want that. Okay, and this should obviously add up to 100%. Okay, so that's kind of how you use it, just in the simple case. Right, but I was going to say something, but I was going to get ahead of myself, so I will leave that first and I will come back to it afterwards. Okay, so but thank you for the question. At least it made me, show that bit of it. So yes, that's like saying show values as a percentage of grand total. Okay, so the pivot by, is not different from, the group by. The only difference is that here you notice we only had what? Salesperson, and then we didn't have anything going in the columns, and then we just had, the sales. But in pivot by, you're now showing like, 2 things. So something is going down the rows, something is going across the columns, and then you're summarizing by something. So let's say in this case, we have dates, and you also can see that the dates are not unique, right? And then you have salespersons as well that are not also unique, and then you have sales. So in this case, you can do a pivot by, and it's not different from a group by in the real sense of it. Okay, I think I had, so let's see. Okay, so pivot by. So the first thing it asks you is what? Row fields. Okay, so for row fields, for example, you can select this. Okay, so meaning that it's going to list the unique dates in the rows. Now, for column fields, we can select salesperson. What does that mean? It means that the salesperson will be listed from left to right. Okay, so that's that. And then for values, you now say, I want to take, my sales field. And after you select that, you need to tell it, what do you want to do with, the sales field? Do you want to sum it? Do you want to do an average? Do you want to do a count? So let's say we want to do a sum, just to keep it simple. Okay. And then you close. And now you can see that you have pretty much a pivot table, right? The way you will see it, which is that you have dates listed here uniquely. You have what names listed here uniquely, and you also have, all, the summations of, okay, so this is what James sold on the 1st of January. This is what John sold on the 1st of January. So this is like, like a cross tabulation, and you're doing that with formulas. If anything changes in your source data, this also changes. Now, if you don't like the fact that you have totals on the right side and at the bottom, you can also, adjust that. So let's just go and see. So field headers, let's keep field headers. So now it says, do you want grand totals? Notice the argument here. The argument here is called row total depth. When we're in pivot table, it was just called total depth. But here you can see that, let me step out of it a little. You can see that you have row total depth and you have column total depth. The row total depth will determine whether there's a total for the rows. The column total depth will determine whether there's a total for the column. So let's say for the row total depth, we say 0, meaning no totals. So what happens? You see what happens to the table. All he did was he took out the row total, which was the one at the bottom, okay? But he still left the column total. Okay, so if you want to then update, the column total, you can also go there for column total and you also see 0. And that way you have like a shrunk, pivot table, that shows you just the dates and the names and then, the sum. So that's how a pivot by works. So you can see that by skipping, if you even skip some of the arguments, you can reduce this pivot by to a group by, which was the point I was trying to make, at the beginning. It's just the way some people will say some ifs can do everything some if does. So all you just do is skip whatever arguments, you don't want, and then a some ifs can become a some if you use only one criteria. So that's kind of like the same, logic in here. Okay, so that's a group by, that's a pivot by in the simple case. So now here, let me check my notes. So this is where it starts to get a little interesting. All right. So this data set I have here will be what I would use, for a good part of, this presentation. Don't worry, it's not anything real. Okay. So I just have, salespeople by dates, their names, their location, the country, the continent, what product they sold, the quantity of that product, and then the sales amount. Okay, so that's basically, what it is. So I want to use this to kind of show you how to expand on the idea of just the group by and the pivot by, which we just saw very simply. But now, we kind of take it, a notch higher. All right, so let's start up with a very simple one where I want to see salesperson by sales by sales rep, meaning summarize the sales rep and tell me their sales. If you look at the data here, let me see how many rows I have. Okay, I have like maybe 300, 90 thereabout. Okay, but now all these sales reps, they are not 390 sales reps. You can see that they are duplicates across. Right, Charlie appears, you can see Deborah, so we can easily see, oh, okay, from this entire data set we can summarize it very quickly using the group by, and we say, group by, and in this case I say, let me say I take all the sales reps, right? And then when you go down, most times when you do Control Shift down in Excel and it takes you to the bottom, when people want to get back to where their formula is, they start to scroll up. You don't need to do that. You can do Control Backspace. Control Backspace brings you pretty much to the active cell where you were. So if you do Control Backspace, you can see I'm in row 394 now. If I press Control Backspace, it jumps me back straight to here. But what most people do is that when they go down that way, Control Shift down to 5,000 rows, they start to scroll to come back up. I don't like to scroll anyway, if I can avoid it. Okay, so that's in the rows. Then for the values, I will do sales. Okay, so I say I want you to summarize salesperson, show me sales. Control Backspace and back up. Then the next thing it says is, what do you want to do? I want to sum each of their sales. So I do a sum. Don't mind that I'm always using sum. That's the easiest one to relate with. Okay, so you can see that that big table now has been reduced to this tiny thing. Okay, so that's the idea of a pivot table, right? To be able to see quick insights from a large data set. So now with a formula, I'm able to see that, well, there are just a few of them, few salespersons, and you can see they are listed alphabetically, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I did that on purpose anyway. So, and then you can see, their sales amounts, and you can see, what the total is. So now let's add, to the complexity. Rather than just seeing salesperson, can we also see salesperson by location? The way you would do in a pivot table, right? You put a salesperson and then you put a location. So let's do that. Now, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to update this portion. So instead of doing sales rep here alone, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select sales rep and location. So sales rep and location, and then go down. That's all. So let's come back. Okay, so look at this now. Automatically, we now have a pivot table that lists all the salespersons, and it lists the location. So Alex in Atlanta, this, Alex in Berlin, this, Alex in Boston, and it goes all the way that way down. Okay, so this is the concept of, adding, subtotals. Now, this is where this comes in, because once you now have two fields in your row field, so to say, or two columns, if you may, in your row fields, then you can do a subtotal. But let's take it one step at a time. Okay, so now after that, the next thing is, do you want field headers? So let me say, yes, I want the headers to show. But mind you, and this is something I should say that is very important, when you select, your source data and what you put in the row fields and column fields and all that, you must make sure that the headers are selected with them. If the headers are not selected and you now come here and you say, yes, I want to show headers, it will use your first row as the header, which if in your own case you did not select the header row, then it means your first row of data, which should actually be, part of the data itself, will be used as the header. That's really it, right? Because the assumption is that, the top row is the header row. So that's why you notice that when I was selecting, if you look at my range, I included my headers in there because I had the maybe foresight, if I may use that word, that I was going to use the header. So now I can say, yes, I want to show headers, which is yes and showed. So 3, okay, close the bracket. So now you can see that I have, headers there, all right? So now the next thing we can do is where we get to the part of totals. So it's asking me, do you want totals? Do you want grand totals? Do you want grand and subtotals? So let me say I want grand and subtotals. What does this mean? It means that everywhere it sees Alex, there will be an Alex total. Everywhere it sees Barbie, there will be a Barbie total. And at the very bottom, you would have what's it called? A grand total. So let's do 2, which is grand and subtotals. So see what happens. This is just like a pivot table, right? You can see that everywhere there's a change in sales rep, you can see this is the subtotal, right? This subtotal for Alex, you scroll down, you can see this is the subtotal for Barbie. You go, this is the subtotal, for Charlie, and so on. And when you get to the very bottom, you would also realize that you have what? A grand total. So that is controlled by that. So now that's one case. So very simple. What we are doing is we are summarizing by sales rep and location and doing a sum on the sales. Now, let me ask a question here. I am summarizing by sales rep and location, right? I could also decide and say I want to do sales rep, location, and country, which is these 3 columns. Okay, so if you look at the structure, most of us know how table structures are. You can see the structure. You're just saying sales rep with a column, go to location, meaning start at sales rep, stop at location. If I want to extend it to country, I can just take out this location and I start typing, country. Okay, and you can see it's including the 3 of them now. So now you see, I can see sales rep, location, country, and sales. Now the question is, what if I only wanted sales rep and country? I didn't want location, which is in between. So I want to see sales rep by country. I want to skip location. With these constructs that I have here, you can't do that, right? Because what this construct indicates is that you start at sales rep. The column says take everything from sales rep all the way to country. So it will do sales rep, it will do location, it will do country. But what if you want to do, 2 non-contiguous columns? Okay, so if you want to do that, then there's a trick for you. So I show you 2 ways that you can do that. So what if I want to do sales rep and country and I don't want to include location? So I can take out this part, right? So I take out this part, which is everything here. And what I would do is, since I now have 2 columns that I want to bring together, that's a good use for H stack, right? H stack is horizontal stack. Yeah, somebody says use H stack function. Oh, Aditya is here. Come on, Aditya knows everything I'm going to show. Okay, so I mean, Aditya can even just take over the session. I'll give him the workbook and he will do everything. He's a very great guy. You guys need to follow. Yeah.
I will make him a presenter right now.
Yeah, make him. He's laughing. Make him a presenter. I'll stop sharing. I'll go have lunch. So you take over. Okay, so he's right. So we can use an H stack, right? So we use H stack. So what he's saying in H stack is H stack says take sales rep column. Okay, that's the first one, and then comma, take what? Country column. So that's how you do for non-contiguous. Okay, so take H tag of sales rep and then country. Okay, so that's basically what it is. I may decide to kind of enter this in here. I normally would like to use the advanced formula environment, but most people are not using it. So what this does now is that it takes the sales rep column and it takes the country column. So see what happens. So now you can, so that's the way to do non-contiguous columns. Use an H tag. But there's also another way you can do it if you don't want to use, the H tag. And I'm sure Aditya also knows that one. He'll probably tell me already that this is what you need to do. What you could do here too is that you could use choose calls. Choose calls says, if I give you a range of 10 columns, which columns do you want to choose from them? So let me show you how to make that work. I can do choose calls, which is saying choose columns. I will select the entire table, right? I select the entire table. Okay, so that's the entire table. And then it now asks me, what columns do you want? So what columns do I want? I want sales rep, which is column 2, and I want country, which is column 4. So what I will do is I will say comma 2, comma 4. Do you get that? So choose columns from this entire table. Just give me what? Column 2 and what? Column 4. And we will get exactly the same result. So let's see if we get the same result. So you see we get the same result. So you could use an H stack, But why H stack? If you have many columns, then you will have to list them many times. But if you use choose calls, you can just put the indices. You can just say 2, 4. You can say 2, 3, 4. It will have a shorter construct. I can guarantee that, And then you can see this is 2, 3, 4. Sales rep is column 2. Location is column 3, country is column 4, and you have all of that. So this is how you do for multiple columns, and when maybe they are not contiguous. Okay, so now one other thing that you can do if we want to really expand on this, but let me do something first, is when you look at the formatting of the pivot table or this result we have here, it doesn't look cool. A pivot table always has these bands it puts, where it would have subtotals, they will have a band, totals will have a band. Let's quickly see that. Let me do something just so that people can appreciate where I'm headed with my next. Let me do a new worksheet just for the fun of it. So let's say I think I did sales rep and I did like location and then I brought sales here. Okay, that's kind of, I think that's what I have. I don't like this format. Right, I typically use tabular form. Okay, right. So you can see that here you have Alex total, you can see Barbie total, you can see Charlie total, and you can see all of that. Of course, you can change what your formatting should look like. Let me see what is on. Okay, it's on the right one. That's fine. So, and you may want to give it this kind of feel where the subtotal rows show up kind of differently. What you can do here is to use conditional formatting. The only challenge I have with conditional formatting is the fact that one, it's not dynamic, right? If you had coded it and say range A1 to A20, when it expands, you then have to expand your formula. You go to conditional formatting and expand it. So, but let's do something here where all these rows that have subtotals, where they actually show up with a different format. So let's do that. So what I will do is I will select everything I have. I will go to conditional formatting, okay? And then I will do a new row. Let me tell you what my logic is going to be. If you look at every row that has a subtotal, what do you notice? There's a value in the first column, and then there's no value in the next column. That's really the only thing I can see, right? But there'll be a challenge, right? You can see that for grand total, it also follows the same logic, but good enough, it's still a total row. So what I can do is I will write a formula that says, if the first column has a value and the second column does not have a value, then format it. Okay, so let's do that. So we will write something that looks like this. Our formula starts in K4, okay? So you can do something like this. We could use an AND function, or you could use a multiplication, anyone you want. You could say, K4 is not blank, meaning that the first column is not blank, okay? Right? You say K4 is not blank, and then what? L4 is blank. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that the first column is not blank, the next column is blank. So any row that meets this criteria, I want you to format it. So let me say I want to format it using, let's say, a blue fill, something like this or something like this. Okay, so let's see what happens here now. So you do okay. So do you notice that everywhere you have a subtotal, you can see that all of them have that blue format. The next thing I can do is maybe for the grand total, I can just decide and do, a simple one there and just say conditional formatting, highlight cell rows. I can say equal to, and I say if it's equal to, grand total, for example, then I want to use a different format. So I could say for that one, I want to use this. Okay, so let's see what happens. Oh, okay, the other one is still there, right? So let me go to manage rules. Okay, this is supposed to take precedence. Let me do stop if true and see what happens. Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't select. Oh, I need to select that rule. Sorry, let me take that back. Let me go. Let me fix this. Let me do a new rule. Let me just do what I would normally do. Okay, so let me just do equals to $L4, or is it K I'm starting from? I think it's K4. Yeah. Okay, so let's do K4. So let's just do this. Grand total. Then I'll show you one more thing. Here. I'm way slower today. The last time I came, Crispo was like, "Guy, you talk so fast." I'm like, "Nigerians talk fast." So today I'm purposely very slow. I don't talk as slowly as this. So here you can see that the grand total has, a different color. Now let me add one more thing to it. If you look at the pivot table I did here, did you notice that everywhere it had Alex? It had Alex total. Do you see that? It didn't just have Alex. It had Alex and a total, right? Instead of just having Alex, it had Alex and total. So how do you do that in my own pivot table? So that everywhere it is Alex, it can show as Alex total. So what we could do is, we could do the same thing. We could go back. Let me show you. This one is nice. In here, so for this one, let's edit this row. So this is the rule that gives us that subtotal. Let's go to format. What we did before was just to change the field. Let me show you a trick. Most of you may know it. So if you go to number and go to custom format, right? When you go to custom format and you type an @ what it means is that repeat the text exactly as it is. Okay, that's the meaning of @ So you can write something like this. Look at this. So what does this mean? It means that whatever text is in the cell, always add a total in front of it. Okay, so what will happen is that everywhere that meets this criteria, they will have the word total appended to it. So let's do OK, and let's do OK. See what happens if you apply it. No, not for the other blank cells. It was supposed to be for just the first one. Oh my God. not for the blanks, but I can handle that with a slightly more complex format. But the point is I wanted to create that total on that. Okay, so but the challenge I have with conditional formatting is that it doesn't expand the way I want it to expand. So if you add more data and you have something in this column, it may not pick up the format. Okay, so that's one thing. Now the next thing you can also do is this. So let's start getting a little more complex. Is that what we are looking at now is just looking at the sum of sales. But somebody may say, I want to see the minimum sale. I want to see the maximum sale. You know what I mean, right? What we are seeing now is just the total sale. Like for Alex in Atlanta, this is his total. But it's possible he sold 5 at a point, he sold 10 at a point. We really don't know. Okay, let me reduce this table. Let me just bring it to 2 and 4. Okay, well, and you can see my conditional formatting messing up there. But so here, now, let's say we want to show, in addition to the sum of sales, we want to show something else. How do we do that? So you can come here where you have sum, and when you have sum, what you do is this. Let me show you. You can do an H stack and say, I don't want only sum. I want to see sum. I want to see mean because it recognizes it. And I want to see max. So see what you're going to get if you do this. Automatically, you can see that now. So what is the win of doing this instead of using pivot tables? It's a lot more steps to achieve the same result. Well, I think the jury is out on that. If you say it's a lot more steps, I don't agree. Well, my biggest advantage, if you ask me, and I'm not here to say don't use pivot tables again, is that I would rather not click refresh. I would rather have my formulas update automatically. So that's my only answer. I think with everything Excel, it's really a case of what you prefer, So because if you say it's a lot more steps, if you set up a pivot table like this, like I did here, for me to clean it up to what I need it to be, I am actually doing quite some things. I could go to design. I started changing my report layout to tabular form. Yes, I know you would tell me that I can set my default layout for pivot tables. I agree. So I could do that, right? But I can say show in tabular form. That's something. I could come here too and I say do not show subtotals. And I could also come here. I could say, turn off totals. So at the end of the day, for me to achieve the same thing in pivot tables, I'm also clicking. So if I'm also clicking and I'm coming here and I'm also putting the argument here and seeing 0, 1, 2, 3, well, for me, I'm basically doing the same thing. But whatever you're more comfortable with, by all means, please, use that. This is not a session to say stop using pivot tables. This is to show you an alternative. Okay, so that will be my answer to that. Okay, so with this, right, because and now that he said it, now I'm now a little touchy, and I'm like, okay, if I wanted to do here and I wanted to bring sales in here and I wanted to do mean, I will have to bring it in here, and I will click this and I will do value field settings and I will do mean, right? If I want to get max, I would also bring it in here. I would click it, I would do value field settings, and then I will do max. So at the end of the day, well, I think it's about personal preference. Okay, so when you do that with what I've just done, now you can see that with each of the sales reps and the countries, what I can do is that I can now see, their sum, I can see their mean, I can see their max, which is exactly what, Ahmed, was saying. Oh, yes, it looks like a lot of steps. But in the pivot tables, you realize that you will still have to do some clicks to get it right. So here, you only do one thing too. You just put them in an H stack, and then, you get it. Okay, so that's that. Now, let me show you an example where a pivot table cannot work. So maybe this will now be the answer to Ahmed's question. Okay, so now let me give you this example, and then you show me how to do it in a pivot table. And once you can show me how to do it in a pivot table, then Ahmed wins the debate, and Victor is going to keep quiet till the end of the session. Okay, so let me tell you what I want to do, sorry, I'm not picking on Ahmed. I'm just, as we say in Nigeria, I'm just catching cruise. What that means is I'm just having fun. Okay, so what I want to do here is this. Let's look at this one. You can see these players, right? They visited, a couple of these countries. Okay, so Cristiano Ronaldo, Paris, and all of that. Now, I want to list each of the countries so I want to list all the unique names of people, and I want to list the cities they've all visited, kind of appended, like together. So this is what I want to have. For example, Cristiano Ronaldo, now if you filter to his name, and I'm sure I didn't spell it correctly. I don't think he has an H in his. I want to see Paris, London, Abuja, this. I want to have them concatenated, and say Cristiano Ronaldo, he has visited these cities. Then the next person too, he has visited these cities and so on. The bad thing here is that because this is a text field, if you drag it into a pivot table, right, what happens? Pivot table can only show you something. See what pivot table does. Let's take a pivot table, Again, we're only showing this just to show that, oh yes, this is one of those things, right? If you do name and you do cities, the only thing you can do when you put cities here is you can only get a count. You can never see the cities in that sense. I mean, in the pivot table, right? If you double click and, expand, most of you know that trick in a pivot table. You see what you have, right? This now shows us that, oh, yes, Cristiano Ronaldo and all of this, okay? But in the pivot table that we had, we will only see a count. But now I want to list those cities in here. So let me show you how to do that, with a group by. So what we are doing basically is saying we are going to group by. Let me show you this one, and I'm going to select all the names. So group by the name, and then it says, what do you want to summarize based on? What field? I will say cities. Okay, so that's that. Now the only thing you can do, if I do count or count A, that will give me exactly what the pivot table gave me. You see this is basically what the pivot table gave. Let me see if I'm right. Okay, so you see it is basically that. That's the same thing the pivot table, gave. That's it. Okay, but now I want to have the cities listed, not do a count. So what I want to do is I want to get the unique values, and then as in get them listed. So now, how many of us have used the array to text function? Array to text function. Yes, Claudia says Cristiano without an H. Yes, I know. So yeah, so what I want to do here is array to text. You know what array to text does? Array to text just takes a bunch of text, and it's like a text join that has a default delimiter. So see what it does. Once you take that, it just glues them together with a comma space. Okay, so that's what array to text does. It doesn't give you the option of selecting your delimiter on like text join. But I have come to discover that in most of my work, comma space is the most common delimiter I use. Okay, so array to text works for me in a lot of situations. So what you could do is that instead of doing Cristiano Ronaldo here and just doing a count A, as part of the eta lambda functions that you can use here, there is array to text. So you can do array to text and see what it does for you. It automatically gives you, Cristiano Ronaldo and all the cities he's visited, and the same thing for everybody. In this context, of course, total doesn't make sense, right? So we can knock off totals and say we don't want totals. So let's go and then do 0. Okay, so now this looks like it's cleaner. So you can't do this, of course, with a pivot table. I mean, there's no argument about that. Okay, so this is one good thing, that you can summarize text fields. Now you can make it more complex. If you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, and just so that Claudia is off my back, I'm going to do a Control H, so that she's not like, oh, Victor, I can't stand the H. Why doesn't it have it? Oh, I thought there was a crease. Okay, well, I'll leave it for now. Okay, anyway, so here, so you can see that we now have that. But let's notice something with Cristiano Ronaldo. Do you notice that he has gone to parry twice? How many people can notice that, right? Someone says, yes, you have to use DAX, right? You can't even use calculated fields. So now you see that Cristiano Ronaldo has gone to Paris twice. So what if I wanted to list, the cities uniquely, meaning that I want Paris to appear only once? Now, that means that this array to text expression is not, sufficient for me. So I need to now create my own function, which is where maybe I may use a lambda. So I could do something like this. I could say lambda, X. X would just be the list of cities that Cristiano Ronaldo has visited. Okay, and if I want to get a unique list of cities he has visited, that means I'm doing a unique of X. Okay, so X here represents all the cities Cristiano has visited. So if I do unique of X, that means list all these things uniquely. So Paris would only appear once. So what I would do is I will first list the cities and then put them inside of an array to text. So this is what my expression will look like. Look at this. So I need to put a bracket here. Okay, just so everybody understands. This is where it gets messy, right? So what I'm saying here is this: take a unique list, which is take a unique of all these cities. Once you've taken the unique, then do an array to text of it. So let's do enter now and see what happens. Do you see that one of the Paris is gone? You're left with just one. Okay, so now you've done it and you've gotten the answer this way. You could also say, oh, I want to see it in alphabetical order. I want it to start with Abuja, then, London, Los Angeles, Paris. So what do? You can do a sort. So after you do a unique, you can sort it. So this is you now creating your own function within, the group by. Okay, and then you close the bracket and you can see that now it is sorted. So Abuja comes first, London, Los Angeles, Paris. Okay, and then you have the others. Okay, so because I'm talking very slowly today, I'm way slower than I would have presented this, but I will do maybe just 2 more things in the respect of people's times, even though I had much more that I could do. Okay, so let me show you something else. And one of the reasons why I also like, the group by function relative to the pivot table. And I'll tell you why. And like I said, it's not a debate between the two. There are just some things that it does better. One thing you also notice is that for a pivot table, any field that is not listed in the original table, you can't do a calculation based on it. You have to have that field in there for you to work with it. Let me show you something here. Okay, so first of all, let me see if I can convert this to text. Okay, so I can convert this to text. So let's do here. This is a simple table, just has names, location, and net worth. So let's say we want to see, the net worth of people by location. Everybody knows how to do that now. Okay, so just a group by, right? And then we select the location, we select the net worth, and we say we want to do a sum. Okay, so this is everybody. Let's kind of change this format a little. I don't know whoever gave it 4 decimal places. Okay, all right. So this is this. You can decide to see it in descending order so that we can see the country that comes first, starting up. So I can use the sort order for that. Okay, so for sort order, I'll just say sort it by what? -2, which is the second column. Okay, so now this is sorted. So now this is what a pivot table can do. But let me change this. Instead of using just regular text, let me use a geography data type. I'm sure most people are aware of this. So you go to data and then you can change this to geography. So once it becomes a geography data type, you can get some parameters from it, right? Like now I can get the flags of these countries by saying this dot flag. But that's this dot image actually. Okay, so now you can see all the images of all these countries. In a pivot table, if you want to do this, for you to be able to see these flags and use them in your pivot table, you must create them in your data set. But with group by, you don't need to create columns. You can create them within the formula. Okay, so let me show you what I will do now. Right, so instead of having that, I can come in here and say, oh no, I don't want to see, just billionaires by location. Because I know billionaires by location is a geography data type, I can put a dot in front of it and just say inside of here, I do dot image, which means that my data has something, source data has something, but I want my pivot table to have a calculation of that. Okay, so, and then I do this. And now you see that I have, the location by the flags, and then the net worth, even though in the pivot table, in the source data, I don't have the flags. You can't do this in a pivot table. That's a guarantee, right? If you want to be able to do this, you need to create that column for the flags. And then if you pull it into a pivot tables now accept images, and you can do that. Okay, so this is one good thing you can do. So what if I wanted to show maybe not just, the flags or the images, I wanted to also show, the currency code. For example, I mean, if I come here and I select this and I say dot currency code, this would give me Nigerian Naira, right? Do I have Kenya here? I was not nice enough. I should have actually, yeah, I have Kenya, yeah. Okay, so Crispo, this should be Kenyan shillings, right? And then, Great Britain pound and all of that. Okay, so if you wanted to do that, you could also do that in this group by. Instead of, just saying, oh yes, in my table, I have only, the geography data type, but I can get more things from it. Let me show you. This is a complex one, but I like it. So what I would do is this. I won't do dot image again. I will use a function. How many people have used the field value function? Field value function allows you to get, a field from a geography or whatever data type you have. So I can say from this location that you have here, which is a geography data type, I need two things from you. One, I need image. Two, I need currency code. And I put them in curly brackets to create array literal. So close the bracket, I put a comma and see what I get. So I can get, location, the currencies, and, the net worth. And in my data set, I have just one of it. Okay, so that's one good thing you can do. It's just an example. You may never have to use it, but just to show you that irrespective of how it appears in your data set, you can do formula expressions in your group by, to show you more things. You know that in pivot tables, if you are doing calculated fields are working off, like the value fields, really. But here, you can do crazy stuff that look like this. So I'll do one more example, just because of time. We are right on the hour, although we didn't start exactly on time. So I will allow Crispo to decide what he wants me to do after this. But let me do this example first. And I would then say, okay, Crispo, what do you want to do? All right. So here, this is a challenge from Excel BI, a great guy that posts challenges every day. I don't know how he does it, because like the guy posts a challenge every day. So it's amazing, and I try to participate as much as possible. But you can imagine I can't even keep up with him. So this was an example he gave, or a challenge he gave once, where from this data set, he wanted to produce a table that looked like this: summarized by year, the half of the year, the minimum date within that half, and the maximum date within that half. Somebody's going to quickly say to me, yeah, we can do this in a pivot table. Yes, when you do this in a pivot table, because pivot tables can summarize by, dates by different, parameters, you will get something, but you know that there's no half as part of what a pivot table will do. A pivot table can do months, year, quarters, but it's not going to do half. So if you have to do half, the only way to do it really is to create a column here that has the half of the year, and then your pivot table will feed off two columns. Then you can do it. But with group by, you don't need to do that. Okay, you can do it all in one place. Maybe the first thing I'll do here is, how do you get the half of the year that a date belongs to? It's easy, right? The first thing is just to get maybe the month. The month that date belongs to, okay, right, which will give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all that. If you divide this by 12, what do you see? Okay, let's put the formatting right. Okay, so sorry, I wanted to divide by 6. I mean, half of the year. So what you see is that you have values that will go from, less than 1, then anything that is above the 6th month will be, above 1, and maybe the 12th month itself will be 2. Okay, so what it means is that if you just round this up to the nearest integer, you can have 1, 2, 1, 2, which is the half of the year. Okay, so this is what I'm just driving at. So round up, and you can say, round up by 0. Okay, so what happens is that everyone now, April is in the first half, September is in the second half. So everything that is less than 1 is rounded up to 1. Everything above 1 or equal to 1, which is like the 6 months and above, will be rounded off to 2. So this is what we use to get, the half of the year. Okay, so you can keep this expression, and then let's do the group by and see if we can produce this result we have on the screen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do group by. And if you look at what he has here, you can see that he has 2 fields in the row field, which is he has a year and he has a half. Okay, so when you have a situation like that, what do? You pull up an H stack, Okay, so you pull up an H stack. Okay, and for the H stack, the first thing I can put in the H stack is I can put the year. That will be my first expression. Then for the next one, I will put in that my expression for half of the year. So those are the 2 things I want to see. I want to see year and I want to see half. Okay, so that's that. That's all. Then the next thing it says is what values, what fields do you want to summarize on? My table has only 1 data column anyway, so I'm going to still select this, because that's all I have. Okay, so I think I need to update it. I want to have headers, so let me include the date. Sorry about that. Let's just put this here. So let's put this. I could easily do that. I could drag. Okay, so now, and then it now asks me, okay, what functions do you want to have? I want to have the minimum and I want to have the maximum. So since there are 2 of them as well too, I will use H stack as well too, and say for the summarization, show me min and then show me max. Okay, so close and close. Okay, so let's see what we didn't get right here. Oh, this one started from, did I say 3? Yeah, okay, I think it's fine. Relatively, let me see what's not right. It kind of looks good, except that, well, maybe I don't want a total. Okay, so I can say total, I don't want a total, maybe no totals. So let me see what's going on here. Is it the 4 that's causing the problem? Okay, let's try with a 4. And let's just see what we get. But that's that answer anyway. So that's how I would do it here. Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like. So that's kind of the year, that's kind of the half, and that's the mean and that's the max, and that's doing it with like a group by. Okay, so it says I think we can use group by in the pivot tables. Yes, you can. Yes, who asked that? Okay, that's Aditya. Yeah, you can group. Yes, you can actually group, right? Let's do that. So if you pull up a pivot table like this, okay, so let's go. Automatically, right, if you pull a date into the rows, you can see that it gives you this, right? And then you can come in again and say, okay, take the dates here. For the date, you can now say I want, min. Okay, and then you can take the date again. You can say I want max. Okay, so you can format this, right? This one, let's see. Okay, so but now what you notice is that here, what you see is that it groups, by quarter, it doesn't have the half of the year. That's what it doesn't have. So if you change the layout of the table, let's say we use a tabular form. Okay, so you can see it can give you the year, it can give you the quarters and all that, but the truth is it doesn't give you a half of the year. So if you wanted to do a half, the easiest way would have been to have it in your data set. But I'm just saying that with the group by here, you don't need to do that. Okay, so that's kind of the other example I want to show is like trying to connect slicers, because that's another question you get asked a lot. Where people say, oh, a pivot table uses slicers. We can use slicers to filter, and show you that, right? So how do you do that with your group by and your pivot by, and I can show you that, but the setup for that is a little intricate. So, I kind of leave it, at this, for now, except we, really want to see that. But that's, me touching half of what I wanted to, which is okay, absolutely, because it's already intense, but it's just to give you ideas. It's not going to solve all your problems, but just in case you have any calculation you normally do where you have to group something and sum something and you want to use a formula to do it, this is some way you can go if you don't want to use a pivot table and start to refresh, but by all means please use a pivot table if you absolutely need to. And then again, you must also realize that not everybody has the function right now, right? So if you write an expression like this and you send it to somebody who doesn't have it, the guy is just going to be seeing Excel function errors up and down. So that's also one challenge challenge, compatibility. So until it becomes maybe available to all Office 365 users, you may not be able to use it the way you want to. Yeah, but if you're in an organization where, for example, everybody's on the insider channel and they have it, by all means. But I think just evaluate your own case. Like I said at the beginning and at different times, this is not a fight between pivot tables and, group by and pivot by. And like I named the session, I said pivot tables with formulas, which still means I'm giving the credit to pivot tables. I'm just doing it with formulas. Okay, so it's not a battle between which is better. There are situations where this may give you more flexibility. There are situations where a pivot table will give you more flexibility. So just assess, your situation and then use what works best for you. Okay, so Crispo, yeah, I don't know when exactly we started, but yeah, I think this is a good time to leave it, except people have questions, then I can take the questions. So thank you very much for the invite.
Maybe you can show us, because I love the filter function, maybe you can show us just that part of the
filter is your favorite function. I know. Okay, just because to appeal to your sentiments, right?
Yes.
Filter is also one of my best functions. I kind of tend to use it in a lot of cases. Yeah, but okay, let me just give you the setup of this so you kind of appreciate what's going on here. The easiest way to make that work, is to use, a table as your data source. That's the first question I would say, right? Because when you use a table as your data source, automatically if you use a table, you can always go in there and you can say, insert slicer, right? Which that's a benefit you will not get if your data source is not a table. Okay, so you could say insert slicer and you could say maybe, location, for example, or country, let's see. All right, okay. So now the issue here is this: when you click on one of the values in your slicer, what really happens to your data source? I've put a small data set here, and why I did that is so that we can see what's going on here. So what I've done at the bottom here is I just linked to this table straight. Okay, that's all. There's nothing happening here. This is just a mirror image of this. Why I did that is that so that when I click on the slicer, your rows will be hidden here, okay? But this one would always remain intact. So what happens when you click Brazil? Your data set is, drilled down to show only Brazil, right? When you click Germany, it shows only Germany. Italy, you can see that, Japan, okay? So it filters, the rows. So some become hidden and some become, stay visible. The question is now, does Excel have a function that allows you to know which cells are visible and which cells are not visible? Does Excel have an is visible function? Natively, the answer is no. There's no function like is visible. Okay, so what can you do? Because that's what you need. You need a function that can determine that these rows are the ones that are now showing up. These rows are the ones that are not showing up. Once you can do that, then you have it sorted. So since you don't have that function, you can create one, right? And there's a function that is very close to that, which is the subtotal function. So subtotal function can tell you, whether it can see something or not. So let's say we do subtotal, okay? And then we decide to do like maybe a count A, okay? And we do comma and we select maybe this, right? So that's all I'm doing. So you can see, yeah. But what I want to do is rather than link it here, I will link it to, like the original data set at the top so that when that gets hidden, you see what happens. So let me link it to B4. So B4 is linking it here, okay? So, and then the rest will follow like that. So what this one means here is that B4 is visible, and so on. Okay, so that's everything. So let's now click one of the countries and see what happens. So once you click Italy now, what do you notice? You can see that every country here that is not Italy, all of them are 0. You can see that there are only 2 ones here, and these 2 ones are on the rows that have Italy. So which means that any row that is hidden, based on this expression I've written here, it's going to give me a 0, and anywhere that is not hidden is going to give me a 1. And a filter for the include criteria typically needs a 1 and a 0. Okay, so that's it. So look at this. If you click United Kingdom now, you will see that anyone that is Italy or United Kingdom, they have 1s. Any other one, has, 0. Okay, so now that's the trick. So that's all you need. So you need this expression, something that looks like this, right? But it's easier when you are doing it here. But when you are doing it in a formula construct or context, it's not as easy. Okay, so but basically we are going to use, like this concept of saying have a slicer link to the table, and then have an expression that looks like this subtotal, and then based on the 0, 1, we'll feed that into the filter, and that will help us get it done. So let me do the example I think I've set up already. Okay, yes. So here I've already set up an example I think I must have added a name by mistake or whatever. But anyway, so what I've done here is just a simple example where I'm doing a pivot by. I have sales reps. So these are my sales reps. And then these are my, continents. Okay. And then I'm doing a sum of sales. So I want to see if we can link, a slicer to this so that the slicer works for it. So this is the source data here. Okay. So this is the data where I'm picking from. Let me see. I seem to have a sales rep that is called AC. And I think I was trying to clear a filter and I must have done Alt AC. So let me call this Alex. Okay. All right. So now let's add a slicer here to this table. So let's add a slicer. Let's just add a slicer of, maybe, okay, or country, or let's add products. Let's add products, just something that is not on that pivot table. Okay. So let's add products. So this is it. Let's make it 2 columns, for example, here. Okay. So let's take this to the other sheet. So copy it. And then, bring it here. Okay, so now, whenever you click something here, what happens? It means it goes to the other sheet, and then it would filter this table and hide whatever rows, you've filtered based on. So what I need to do now is in my calculation here, I need to bring that into my expression. And I've already done it, because the last time I kind of showed something like this, I decided to set it up already. So let me show you what's going on here. So everything is the same. The only thing you deal with here is you deal with the filter array portion of it. That is all. The filter array just needs 1 and 0. That's all. And I've shown you how to get the 1 and 0. The 1 and 0 is gotten using this function, subtotal 3, doing a count A, and then, whatever row you're dealing with. So this is what I'm doing here in this case. Okay, so basically I'm looking at that table on the other side. So I'm saying by row, look at that table on the other side, which is that big table, the source sales table. Okay, and then I'm writing a calculation. So my calculation is, when I say X here, what it means here, X means every row of that table. Every row of that table is X. When it goes the first time, row 1 is X. The next time, row 2 is X. And I now say do subtotal, 3 of X. So what it means is that if by the time you click this slicer, that row is hidden, then this expression will give you 0 for that row. If it gives you 1, then it means it's not hidden. So you kind of close all the brackets, and let's see. So now let's try and click banana bread and see if we get it right. So if you click banana bread, you can see that it filters this expression here. And the reason it's working is because you have put this in the filter array. This guy here is just giving us a bunch of what? Zeros and ones. Look at it here. You can see 0 zeros. So basically it's kind of giving us either 0 or non-zero. So if you want to see if this is right, as in what we've done here, we can do like a pivot, table here. And then let's say insert, let's do a pivot table just to check if that's working well. Source sales, I think, is the name of my table. So let me say I put it here. Okay, so what did we do? I have salesperson here. So salesperson is coming here. I have, that's continent, right? I have continents going here. And then I have sales coming here, right? And then if you come here, let's put its own filter here. I'm filtering based on products. So let's put add a slicer, right? Okay, and let's do banana bread. Okay, do you see that we have exactly the same expression? 498 is my total here. 498 is my total here. So that's the logic of how it's working. So it's just basically saying link a slicer to a table. Whenever you click an element on the slicer, right, automatically some rows will be hidden, some rows will be visible. Every row that is hidden will become 0. Every row that is not hidden is 1, and then you feed it into the filter array argument. Okay, so the filter array just needs 0 and non-zero, and then that's how you're able to get it to work. So if you have banana bread and you add milkshake to it, you see something here, 794. If you come here and you add milkshake to it, you can see you have 794. So basically, you're able to do what the pivot table does, with the group by and the pivot by. So that's really how it works. So that's it. I say no more, and that's that. So I can share the workbook afterwards, so you can play and fiddle around. I'll share it with every mess I've put in there if you're okay with that. But if you want me to share it clean, I can do that, but I can share it with everything in there. You can choose to delete it or not, but so that you maybe also have some of the formulas already working for you there. But if you want me to send the fresh one, I can also do that. So Crispo, thank you for the opportunity.
I think the person we need to thank is you. Aditya says there's nothing impossible in Excel, and his hand was up. I don't know whether he has a question. Aditya, you want to ask a question? You can unmute yourself, all right? Or if there's
Great.
anyone with a question, yes.
He's doing great. Matlab, he is legend now. He
No,
showed
no,
the
you.
most impressive trick.
Oh yeah, true. Victor has all the tricks under his sleeve, so
No, I don't. I just have a few, and you just keep playing around, and trying to stumble on things. Yeah, in truth, and sometimes you also learn, from that, which is one of the reasons why I always look at even solutions on Excel BI challenges, because I have
yes,
my own ways of doing it, and then I look through and I'm like, how did this person think about things like this? People like Aditya, people like Bo Raidobon, Diamond Ellie, Rick Rothstein, they always come up with very impressive solutions. So I
true.
think that's the beautiful thing about the community, learning from ourselves. We have our skills, our strengths, but imagine if we all put all of that together, we get to, achieve a lot more. So,
True. My
someone says
question
share with
was,
every mess. Yeah, question.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question was, where you had put the totals below. Can you be able to do the totals above? You see, like the
Yes,
way
you can
you.
do that.
Oh, you can do that.
Yes, you can do that. Let me not use
For
this.
every group, you put the total above it, not below it.
Okay, not below it. Yeah. So if you come
Mm.
here, let's look at this
Yes,
one
yes,
and see what we
yeah,
can get.
yes.
So in this place, so here if we come to so here where we had three that show the headers, right? So we came here to two total depth. So we can see grand and subtotals at the top. Yeah, so
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So that's like
Interesting.
saying yes. So you see now when it takes the grand total at the very top, but it starts to do.
Yeah.
Maybe if I reduce, I think it's easier if we're looking at a simpler, maybe a simpler table. That table I've put there is quite complex. Yeah. So, but you can see here,
But I
Alex.
get it. Yes.
Yeah, you see
Yes.
Alex is at the top here,
True.
Barbie is at the
True.
top. Yeah, then Charlie is at the top. So
True.
instead of doing the
True.
bottom, so it's basically
Yes.
just a flip of the sign. So if you
Okay.
go from -2, so that's so it actually can do, quite a bit, right? So if you did 2, it will be at the bottom. If you do -2, it will flip everything to the top. Yeah. So
Nice.
I mean, for me, it's one thing, and I agree with who was that again? I think that's Amen. Yeah.
Amen.
One thing I agree with him on is that they actually have a lot of arguments. Like if you look at this, like you can see this is a lot, right? It's probably about 10, and they just added this relative too, but let's not talk about that. But so yeah, sometimes it looks a little overwhelming, like which one do I use, which don't I use? But what I see is that the more you use them, the more familiar you get, and you kind of know, yeah. Because the truth is that if they have to give so much flexibility, then they will probably have to give you a lot of arguments, right? Because that's the only way you can get flexibility to say, I want to sort, I want to show subtotals, I don't want to show headers, so pretty much everything a pivot table can do from a cosmetic or customization standpoint, you can attempt to do it here. The slicer one was the one that was never really there, but now, there's a way around it. So, but very good question. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thing I was going to really say, okay, even if I didn't touch on other things, yes, I have some other things where I use check boxes instead of like I can use a checkbox, so you can see I'm kind of making it dynamic. So I have a pivot by, then I'm using a checkbox to determine which ones I show, which I don't show, But once you get the filter bit and the slicer, that to me is like the biggest thing in a sense.
True.
Yes.
True.
So once I've done that, every other thing for me is not consequential. So it's
True,
okay. It's just okay. The time is just fine. Thank you so much.
Kereshi, I don't know whether Kereshi was here when you were showing us how to do the percentage off and the aggregate at the beginning. The question that I had asked you, whether you can do a percentage off.
Oh, yes. So what I was saying is that it depends, right? Like here, if I were in this one, maybe just for it to make sense, I could show both. Yes, exactly. So I show both the sum and so to say the percent off, so that is relatable. People can see what's going on. Okay, this guy is Okay, so now this one doesn't need this formatting. Okay, so it's kind of relatable, this way. Where it gets. So what they are just saying here is that 7.5 is 25% of the total, right? You can put a total row if you want to do that. Now, where it gets interesting is maybe here. Let me say here, where you have two numeric fields. You have a sales field here. You have a quantity field here. Now the question now is, when you do percent off, so to say, which one, do you really want it to do it off? Is it off? So that was where they now kind of introduced, this function here, this argument of relative to say, okay, yes, the percent off, for example, is relative to sales, is relative to this, is relative to that. So that's kind of where that, kind of got introduced here. But that's how you can use the percent off to say, okay, is it as a relative of this, that, but yes, you can see how many steps you need to go before you can get to relative to. That's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 10 functions, 10 arguments rather. So you can see why people may say, oh, no, I just go and do a pivot table. Yeah, it's a lot of arguments. Yeah, but for good reasons, If we have a better idea of how they can make the functions more succinct, then we can suggest it, yes. But that's what we have for now. Well, it's still in beta anyway, so it means that they keep improving it. Like the relative 2 was not there initially. In the initial release, it wasn't there. That must have come up as a result of some maybe feedback to say, oh, when we do percent off, what are we doing it off? Can you give us some flexibility around that? So somebody could also tell them, well, these arguments are too much. Is there a way you can collapse some of them into one? Well, I don't know. I'll leave that to the geniuses to figure out. But that's the bit you can do with it, yes. And if you want to do multiple percent offs in some sense, yes, maybe each stack.
Just each stack them, yeah.
Yes,
true. Okay. Aditya, you have another question?
Nah, actually, I don't have a question. The thing is, pivot tables really make messy charts, right?
Yes,
charts are really sucking. So that's why I feel like this function is much better for our dashboards and gives us much more flexibility. Otherwise, we would have to go for DEX thing.
Yes, right. Yeah, so now you have...
And then we have to go for that OLEP functions type and then convert this thing. And that was much more messy. I feel that way because my field is much more about decorating the things.
Okay. Aesthetics is a big thing in what you do, right? Yeah.
Accountancy and finance, actually.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean that's it really. So like now you just have a pivot chart on top of it, a chart rather on top of it, and then automatically if this changes to anything like 3,000, everything changes, right? So you can see that the group by changes and the chart also changes. So for me it's really cool anyway, beyond even the aesthetics, the fact that things are happening right on the spot. So as the input is changing, everything on that dashboard is changing, in that sense.